Hello and welcome to today's tutorial on using JTree to display data in a hierarchy. And in this tutorial we're going to take a look at taking some hierarchical data and using JTree to display it to us. And we'll also introduce the tree node, which works alongside JTree. As we go through the tutorial, we'll see how the tree node takes care of handling the underlying data, and we use JTree to display the information very much like you can see over here. So let's go take a look at how we do this. As we saw from our example, we're going to create a JTree with a hierarchical structure, and to do that we're going to use Java Standard Edition 1.7 and Eclipse development environment. So if I switch to my development environment, first thing we'll do is we will create a new project. And we will call that new project JTree JTree hierarchy. As I said, we'll use 1.7 and we'll accept the rest of the defaults. And that will create us our basic project structure. And under our source, we're going to create a new class. And this will be the main entry point of our class, but we'll put this in our examples JTree package, far too many R's, and we will call it JTree example. And again, to make it easy to build an application, we're going to inherit from the JFrame. So we'll extend our class, we'll extend the JFrame to form our class. We do want a main method, and we'll just build the stub of our application. Now, in a previous tutorial, we looked at how to get started with JTree and to build a JTree by passing an array of strings. And for each item in that array, there would be a node created in the JTree. But there was no hierarchy, it was just all flat entries all on the same level. So you might think that if you can build an array, build a JTree using an array of strings, if you passed into JTree an array of arrays, you might get some sort of hierarchical structure. And you're right, you would. But it doesn't quite work out the way you think it would. So we're going to have a quick look at that to start with, and then we'll take a look at how we move on from there. So to demonstrate this, we'll create a string array and we'll create an array of arrays. So I'm guessing thin is the next one. And then what was the other one? Black olive, wasn't it? So we can have thick crust options that can have cheese, pepperoni and black olives, and then we are going to have thin crust options we're going to have thin crust options that can have different things, ham, chicken. I'll make that ham and pineapple. Ham and pineapple and chicken. Oh, I've forgotten this is an array of array. Yeah. So, there we go. And then what we'll do is we'll do our normal, we'll do our event queue, invoke later, and we'll create a new runnable and invoke our public run method, public void run method. Hopefully I've got that roundabout right. And then we will create an instance of this class. So JTree example equals new JTree example, calling the default constructor. Then we'll do our set default close operation to exit on close, and dot set title to a title of some sort. JTree hierarchy. What I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to do set layout to a. We're just going to use a nice simple border layout because we don't have particularly ambitious needs at the moment. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to do app, and we're going to set our frame to be visible. And then finally we're going to pack it so it uses up the space required by the objects on it. Now we do actually have a problem with our, so I'm going to import that, the border layout. For starters, open and close that, should be that. And then we have an open parentheses, then we have our public void run, open close parentheses, open curly brackets, and then we should have close curly brackets and close curly brackets there with one of those on the end like that, and that should be a curly bracket. Okay, so just to check that we've got this all set up right, what we're going to do is run it, and what we should end up with is an empty J frame with a title that turns up. And there we have it, and if we exit that, we'll see that our thread has terminated there. So that's that bit done. Happy with that bit. So we've got our array of our string array of arrays. What we're now going to do is, just like we did in the basic JTree one, we're going to create a new class to create our JTree. And we are going to call this JTree panel 2. It's not going to extend anything, it's not going to implement anything, so we'll just get our basic code stub put together. And I'm going to create some private methods, and one is the JPanel. Just to explain things, what we're going to do is we're going to create a JTree, we're going to lay it onto a JPanel, and then the JPanel will be laid into the frame, and that's how we're going to build it up. So we're going to have a private JPanel, which we'll just call JPanel, and it will equal new J panel. Again. And I'll just import that. Then we're going to have a private JTree, which we will set up later. And then we're going to have a private string array of arrays. One too many. Array of arrays, which we're going to call options. Right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create a constructor. And in our constructor, I should have actually said it was going to be passed a parameter. So it's going to be passed an array of arrays. There we are. Which were the toppings string that we defined in our previous class. That's what's going to be passed across. And we're going to take that and we're going to assign it to options here so that if we need to reference it later, we can do. And we won't need to in this particular short example, but if you want to build on it, you may want to. And then we're going to create tree 1 from a new JTree, and we are going to pass it as a parameter options, our array of arrays. And then we're going to take our J panel and we're going to add into it our JTree, like so. And that would, calling that constructor would set up our JTree. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to provide a method to allow our main class to be able to return the J panel so that it can add it into the frame. So we're going to create a public method which is going to return a J panel, and we're going to call it get J panel and take no parameters or no arguments. And all it's going to do is simply do a return J panel. And that's all we would have to do. So I'll save that, and now we've come back to our other class just below where the border is. There it is. We will now make use of our JTree panel 2 class. So we're going to create a JTree panel 2 object. My tree 2, I use the number 2, make it slightly easier to work with. And we're going to pass it toppings. Toppings 2 even, which is what we called it. And then we're going to add it to our frame. So that's going to be my tree2.get panel. Put it in the center of our border. If we save that. So, when we run this, what we might think we'll get is we'll get a JTree with thick crust and thin crust at the first level, and underneath that, under thick crust, we'll have cheese, pepperoni and black olives, and under thin crust we'll have ham and pineapple and chicken. So let's press the button to run it and see what we get. and we get this, which is not quite what we might have thought we would get. And if you expand it, you'll see you get thick crust, you get these. So everything's been put on a level below, and it's taken what appears to be the identifier for the object for the string array for each of the levels above. So basically, it's not really what we were after. So let's take a look at another way we can do this. So what we'll do is we'll remove these comments to use JTree panel 2. Okay, and we'll just comment out those bits, and we don't need the other class we've just done. So what could we do? Well, let's create another class to create another JTree and see what else we can do. So again, we'll keep it in the examples JTree package, and we'll call this one JTree panel 3. And once more, we won't inherit from anything, and we won't implement anything. And what we'll do is we're going to take the same approach. So we're going to create a J panel. And a JTree, which we will need. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the same string array that we defined. In fact, I'm actually going to copy it from here. I'm going to take this string array, because it's already set up, so let me borrow that and put it in here. The one thing I will do is I'll change that to toppings 3, and we will use that to build up our hierarchical array. So we're going to create another constructor. We're going to create a constructor for this. But this constructor is not going to take any arguments at all. So it's just going to be a default constructor. But what we are going to do is we're going to use something called a default mutable tree node. So when we passed the string array to JTree and it created all those nodes for us, what it in fact did was it created tree nodes underlying. It was all transparent, but it took the strings, it created a tree node, then it added the tree node as one of the items into the JTree to display. And that's how you manipulate the data for a JTree. JTrees are pretty much focused on displaying the visual elements of the JTree and the things that you can interact with. So whether something's selected, whether it's hovering over, all of those type of user interface type aspects, the JTree focuses on. The tree node focuses on the underlying data and keeping a relationship to other nodes that it is aware of. So let's take a look at how we do this. So if we create a default mutable tree node, because that's one of the ones that they give us out of the packet that comes with it, we don't have to create our own. Now, I'm going to create one called root as a place marker for the entry point, and we'll come back to that later. So then what we're going to do is there's going to be a node underneath the root. I'll call that sub1. and we're going to create a new default mutable tree node, toppings 3 we called it, and now we're going to pick the first item of toppings 3. I've missed I need that back up there, and then we'll close all that down. So that will create our first subnode, and then we're going to create another subnode, and this is going to be the second item. So basically we've created 2 default mutable tree nodes called sub1 and sub2, and we've initialized them using the toppings string array in position 0, 0, which is thick crust, and then in 2, 0, which is thin crust. And then what we'll do is, because now we've got our thick crust, we need to add in a new default mutable tree node. And it's going to be our toppings, and this time it's going to be 1 and then 0 for the first one. And then for the other 2, it's going to be 1, 1 and 1, 2. And then what we'll do is for sub 2, we will use 3, 0 and 3, 1. And then finally, what we'll do is we'll take our root and we'll add in our sub 1, and we'll add in our sub 2. So what we've got there is we've got our JTree, which has got a root, then underneath it's got sub 1 and sub 2, and under sub 1 it's got the 3 options of cheese, pepperoni and black olives, and under thin crust it will have the ham and pineapple and chicken options under it. So what we haven't got is we haven't got our JTree at the moment. What we've done is we've created a default mutable tree node structure. As you can see, they're all linked together. Everything's linked to the root, and now what we can do is we can say tree 1 equals a new JTree, and we'll pass it the root, and that will miraculously pick up I haven't imported JTree. It will miraculously pick up the whole structure that we're looking to create. Now, we created a root, and if you remember, and in our example, we don't have a root. Sometimes you do want a root, sometimes you don't. Well, in our case we don't. So if you don't want a root, what you can do is you can simply say set root visible and set it to false, and it won't show the root. So the root will still be there, but it will start with showing just everything that's under the root. So we'll get thin crust and thick crust. The other thing by doing this approach that we saw when we did the array of arrays, there was the little handles, the plus and minus signs to expand and collapse the tree. They're called handles, and you don't get them by default in building your JTree this way. So if we show root handles and set to true, then that will switch on the handles. If you don't want them, you don't have to. And then last of course but not least, we need to add this into our JPanel, because that's what we are going to use to put our JTree into our frame. So there we are. We've built our JTree up using default mutable nodes, and we've added them into our JTree. And that's the mechanism of how to do it. If you've got quite a large set of information that you'll probably want to handle it slightly differently, but the principle's still there. You would still use your tree nodes to build up your data and control your data as it changes and have your JTree reflect it. But what we need to do now is we need to create our public method that's going to return a JPanel to us, which is going to be what, get JPanel. Takes no arguments, and we'll just do the return JPanel. And we can save that. And now we can go back to our code. And we can simply go JTree panel 3, my tree 3 equals a new JTree panel 3. We don't need to pass it any arguments, and then we simply add it to our my tree 3, isn't it? Get panel. And now if we run it, hopefully you'll see we get our JTree. Now because it's collapsed, which is also something you can alter if you want, you can see you've got your thick crust and your thin crust. There's no root, and under there you've got your cheese, pepperoni and black olive, and under your thin crust you've got your ham, pineapple and chicken. So in this tutorial we took a look at using JTree to display some hierarchical information, and we saw how you can create tree nodes to hold the individual bits of data and build up a hierarchy using the nodes and present them to JTree. So hope you've had fun following this tutorial. As usual, if you need any of the source code, save you typing things in, go to www.softwarepulse.co.uk and you can download the software there, and also take a look at some of the other tutorials that might be of interest to you. Thank you once again for watching.